Another week, another security breach making the news. Welcome to In Depth, everyone. Today, I'm joined by my esteemed colleague and security reporter, Kyle Alspach, once again, and we're talking about the SharePoint attacks, specifically the ToolShell campaign, which involved the exploitation of critical vulnerabilities in on-premises Microsoft SharePoint servers. These attacks have led to widespread compromises globally. It's affected hundreds of organizations, including some U.S. government agencies. So, Kyle, tell us what the impact of the attacks has been so far.
So this is looking to be one of the bigger attacks that we've seen in recent years. Everyone knows Microsoft, very widely used, SharePoint, very widely used, system. So potentially a lot of customers would be affected. However, it is, as you mentioned, it's only for on-premises or other self-hosted instances of SharePoint. So that reduces the number of, potential victims by quite a lot. But even still, there's been significant impacts reported. Researchers have said at least 400 SharePoint systems have been compromised so far. And as you mentioned, some of those are, very sensitive systems, such as, federal agencies. The Department of Energy confirmed today that they were impacted. They didn't get into a lot of specifics about that, but that's always a concern. There was a report that possibly the Nuclear Safety Agency was among those affected. So always never what you want to hear in that regard. Potentially other federal agencies, state agencies, as well as presumably a number of companies, although we haven't heard a lot of specifics on that yet. But all the experts I've spoken with have said, this could be up there with, one of the bigger impacts, more widely felt impacts that we've seen in a number of years.
What do we know about the attackers that have been behind these threats?
So maybe not a huge surprise, but researchers believe that at least some of the attackers are based in China and associated with the Chinese government. What's known as nation state actors. Microsoft has put out the most details on what they believe is going on, and they say at least 3 groups that are China-based have been seen to be exploiting these vulnerabilities. So these are groups that are focused on things like intellectual property theft, espionage. So maybe not so much on the ransomware, cyber crime extortion side of things, although that could be, happening as well. We just haven't heard as much about that yet, but that could certainly come out, especially if, data is being stolen by cybercrime groups. That's the kind of thing where, that wouldn't necessarily come out right away. So it's a strong possibility that that's been going on as well.
Now, how long could the impacts of the attack, continue?
So, that's, kind of, as I was just mentioning, there's so many possible threat actors and possible types of, attacks that have been happening that it could go on for quite a while. We could be hearing, about these attacks. The attacks themselves also could go on for a while because there's some, not to get too much into the technical details, but there's some aspects of this where attackers could potentially maintain their access into systems if the affected organizations don't take certain actions. They're supposed to rotate credentials and things like that. Just basically, change the ways that you log into systems so that attackers who've stolen those, authentication, mechanisms can't keep using them. And so if organizations don't do that, the point is that the attacks could continue because they'll still have access. And some of them, that might be their main strategy, is to just kind of, stay low key in these systems and exploit them over time, or launch an attack at some point in the future. There's any number of different ways once an attacker is in that that they might be able to exploit the situation. And so that's, I think, the big concern here is that the impacts so far have already been significant, but there's really no telling with something like this how long it could be going on for, especially if organizations are not aware of it. Another concern is just around whether or not organizations know that they have servers that could be affected by this. The example was given to me this week that, when a company might have made some acquisitions and they have some of these SharePoint servers that they're not even aware they have them, that are vulnerable, and they could have been compromised. And they don't even know that they have the servers to begin with. So they're not looking for signs of compromise. And so that's when big problems happen, is when you're not even aware of the possibility that you might have been compromised. And so that's a big concern, and that kind of thing could certainly play out for some time here.
Yeah, and the silver lining here is it does seem like that could potentially be a really big opportunity for MSSPs and channel partners that are helping these organizations handle that security piece, that ongoing security piece.
Definitely. I mean, and this is sort of always the perennial thing with security that makes it such a unique space, is that any time something really negative like that happens, organizations are going to be taking security more seriously than they were before, which is a good outcome, because they should be taking security seriously, and part of that can certainly be and will certainly be that they're going to reach out to their partners, and they're going to look to service providers and anyone who can advise them both about how to get the attackers out of their systems if they're not capable of doing that themselves, and then also just kind of hardening their defenses against the next attack that will probably be here before we know it. So I think it's certainly another massive opportunity. I'm sure partners will find this is a pretty good time to have a security conversation with their customers, whether or not the customer was actually directly impacted by these attacks.
And as always, we'll continue to keep a close eye on this ongoing situation. Of course, the ToolShell campaign, there's a bunch of other breaches that we'll obviously also have to continue to watch. So head to crn.com for the most up-to-date information and Kyle's security coverage. And Kyle, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much.